Welcome to Whispers and Confessions. There might be a twist waiting, so please make sure to watch until the end. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Let's begin right away.
My name is Robert, and at 53, I'm a sales manager at a major company. Over the years, I've built strong relationships with my team, but none quite as special as my connection with Daniel and Jessica. I set them up a decade ago, and it's been a joy to watch their marriage flourish. They're both 32 now, and they've become invaluable members of our team. Emily and I have shared 23 years of marriage since meeting as coworkers. Those early days were filled with love and understanding as we built our life together. But lately, we've grown distant. The child question has been our biggest hurdle. Emily desperately wanted kids, while I thought we'd be complete on our own. Our intimacy has taken a hit too. We keep using tiredness as an excuse, but the truth is, we're drifting apart. Emily's got this incredible way about her, warm, caring, always putting others first. Sometimes, though, she keeps things to herself too much. Me? I maintain a professional appearance at work, playing the part of the level-headed boss, but inside, I'm wrestling with my own unfulfilled dreams and fears. I'll never forget how Daniel and Jessica's story began. Daniel was this new employee, and man, did his work ethic impress me. He's got big dreams and drives hard to achieve them, even if he can be a bit hasty sometimes. Jessica caught everyone's eye when she walked into the room, tall, graceful, with this long hair and fair skin. But it wasn't just her looks. Her smile made everyone feel welcome. She had a perfect combination of creativity from her advertising background and sharp business sense. I spotted the spark between them at a company party and decided to play Cupid. 6 months later, I was standing there officiating their wedding. Since then, we've become like family, sharing dinners, holiday trips, and life's little moments. Emily took Jessica under her wing, sharing cooking secrets, while I mentored Daniel in both his career and personal life. We weren't just colleagues anymore. We were family. Then last month, everything changed. During one of our regular dinner get-togethers at our place, Daniel was helping Emily in the kitchen as usual. I never thought twice about it before. They always seemed to have fun cooking together. Meanwhile, Jessica and I were out in the garden, chatting about plants and life. She was her usual charming self, making conversation feel as natural as breathing. But that evening, something felt off. The kitchen had gone unusually quiet. When I went to check, what I saw through the curtain gap stopped me in my tracks. I couldn't believe my eyes. Emily was holding onto the kitchen sink, her skirt raised above her waist. Daniel stood behind her, his hands firmly holding her hips as he pressed against her. Their faces were red with passion, both struggling to stay quiet by biting their lips. The gentle clinking of dishes on the counter and the tense atmosphere in the kitchen revealed the intensity of their intimate moment. I stumbled away from the kitchen, my entire body trembling and my heart racing. I was overwhelmed by emotions, raw anger, deep betrayal, and pure disbelief. I couldn't bring myself to look again, afraid that a second glance would only confirm what I desperately wished wasn't real. My thoughts were confused, and my hands were so sweaty I had to keep wiping them on my pants. Maybe I didn't see what I thought I saw? I kept asking myself, but deep down, I knew exactly what I'd witnessed. I found myself opening and closing my fists repeatedly, trying to get a grip on my spiraling emotions. Emily might be in her late 40s, but she's always taken care of herself, staying fit and youthful. Still, I never would have imagined Daniel making a move on her. Or was Emily the one who started it? The thought made my stomach turn. The jealousy and betrayal felt like physical pain in my chest. Minutes later, I heard Daniel's voice coming from the kitchen, and Jessica walked into the living room carrying dishes. Emily and Daniel followed, acting perfectly normal as they took their seats at the table, though their red faces gave them away. Throughout dinner, I sat there like a ghost while the other three chatted away as if nothing had happened. I couldn't focus on a single word they were saying. Instead, I found myself drawn to Jessica's presence. Every time our eyes met, my heart would skip a beat. I felt this strange connection with her, like we were both being deceived. Truth is, I'd always had a soft spot for Jessica, though I'd never admitted it to anyone. The way she carried herself, her smart conversation, that warm smile that could light up a room, it all got to me in ways I couldn't explain. When she and Daniel got married, I played the happy boss, but inside, man, that was a rough day. Later that night, lying in bed, that kitchen scene kept replaying in my head endlessly. Every time I glanced at Emily sleeping next to me, it felt like someone was ripping my heart out. 20 plus years together, and now this? The anger, the betrayal, the overwhelming sense of loss. It all hit me at once. I kept wondering if Emily had real feelings for Daniel. After 20 years together, I felt like I didn't know her anymore. But I couldn't deny what I'd seen with my own eyes. The weirdest part? My feelings weren't just about being angry or betrayed. There was this constant guilt too. Like maybe some part of me had been waiting for something like this to happen. Like maybe I'd been looking for an excuse to shake things up. And that thought scared me more than anything else. I struggled to control my growing feelings for Jessica. Her radiant smile, graceful movements, and the genuine happiness she exuded around Daniel deeply affected me. When memories of the kitchen incident surfaced, my mind would twist the scene, replacing Emily and Daniel with Jessica and myself. I could vividly picture Jessica braced against the sink, my hands on her waist. Though these thoughts filled me with guilt, they refused to fade away. The following day at work, I couldn't concentrate. The complicated relationships between Emily, Daniel, Jessica, and myself consumed my thoughts, leaving me distracted and conflicted. After deep reflection, I came to understand that this situation wasn't just about Emily and Daniel's indiscretion. It had evolved into something that deeply affected all four of us. Most importantly, I couldn't keep denying my feelings for Jessica any longer. I considered several approaches. Should I confront Emily directly, fire Daniel from the company, or simply pretend nothing happened? But these solutions felt like temporary solutions to a bigger problem. As mature adults, we needed to find a way to preserve our relationships while honestly addressing our emotions and desires. That's when an unconventional idea struck me. What if we embraced a more open approach to our relationships? It was risky territory, no doubt, but considering what had already transpired between Emily and Daniel, coupled with the undeniable connection between Jessica and me, this alternative started to make sense. An open relationship could potentially resolve our issues in several ways. For starters, by acknowledging rather than suppressing the connection between Emily and Daniel, we might actually foster a healthier dynamic. Being honest and understanding seemed far better than living with secrets and lies. Moreover, it could provide a natural outlet for the feelings between Jessica and me. This wouldn't be just about physical attraction. It could evolve into something meaningful, built on mutual understanding and genuine respect. Above all, this arrangement would open the door to genuine honesty between us. The weight of hidden feelings and unspoken desires had been crushing us all, and this could be our chance to build something based on real trust and understanding. I believe that by acknowledging our true emotions, we could transform our relationships into something more meaningful and authentic. After careful consideration, I decided to take action. While the idea seemed unconventional, I trusted in our maturity and emotional intelligence to handle this delicate situation. However, the question of how to present this proposal, and more importantly, whom to approach first, kept me up at night. A few weeks later, Daniel and Jessica joined us for dinner again. This time, I deliberately stayed away from the kitchen, though my heart was pounding with anticipation. While everyone chatted and laughed as usual, there was obvious tension in the air. Later that evening, when Emily and Jessica went shopping together, I found myself alone with Daniel. I took a deep breath and summoned my courage. "Daniel, I need to discuss something with you," I started, my voice surprisingly steady. "This might come as a shock, but please hear me out. What would you think about the possibility of us dating each other's partners?" Daniel's reaction was exactly what I'd expected. First shock, then disbelief. He turned pale, then blushed. But as the initial surprise wore off, I could see the wheels turning in his mind. After what felt like an eternity, he spoke carefully. Well, I think I understand where you're coming from. If we're talking about just dating, maybe that could work. The following days at work were filled with awkward encounters. Every time I passed Daniel in the hallway, I could sense the weight of our conversation hanging between us. His expressions carried a mix of confusion, curiosity, and concern. Then, one weekend, my phone rang. It was Daniel. He cleared his throat nervously before speaking. "I've talked it through with Jessica," he said. She was pretty shocked at first, but we had a really deep conversation about our relationship. Surprisingly, she's open to the idea. She actually said it might be an interesting new chapter for all of us. He didn't mention Emily, and I didn't push the subject. Some things didn't need to be said out loud. Finally, I had to face the hardest part, talking to Emily. Though she'd already heard something from Daniel, I knew I needed to lay everything out honestly. When I brought it up, she sat in silence for what seemed like forever. Then, unexpectedly, she started laughing. "You know," she said, shaking her head, "this is so unlike you. But maybe that's not a bad thing." We spent hours talking that night, really talking, about everything we've been holding back. About our fears, our desires, our hopes. By the end of our conversation, not only had Emily agreed, but we'd set up our first date night for the following Saturday. That Saturday evening, my heart fluttered with anticipation as I prepared for my date with Jessica. When we met at Chicago's magnificent mile downtown, she took my breath away in an elegant black dress that perfectly complemented her figure. As we strolled beneath the city's twinkling lights, window shopping at luxurious boutiques, I couldn't help but notice how Jessica's eyes lit up at a particular jewelry store display. The way she gazed at the sparkling pieces made my heart skip a beat. Our dinner at an intimate Italian restaurant exceeded all expectations. Over candlelight and fine wine, we shared stories about our passions and aspirations. Jessica's laughter was infectious, and as the wine loosened our inhibitions, our conversation flowed effortlessly. Time seemed to stand still as we discovered how perfectly we connected on every level. After dinner, we took a leisurely walk, finally addressing the chemistry that had always existed between us. "You caught my attention from day one," Jessica admitted, her voice soft and sincere. "But I kept my distance, knowing you were Emily's husband. I found myself opening up too. Your grace and intelligence always captivated me, but I forced myself to maintain professional boundaries." As these confessions poured out, I gently placed my hand on her shoulder. Instead of pulling away, Jessica moved closer. Her sweet perfume filled the air. Under the warm glow of the street lamps, her beauty was absolutely mesmerizing. We paused our walk, our eyes meeting in an intense gaze. Her lips in the moonlight drew me in. Unable to resist any longer, I tenderly cupped her face and kissed her, our lips meeting in a gentle, passionate embrace. "I know a lovely hotel nearby," I suggested, my voice barely above a whisper. Jessica hesitated briefly, then gave me a shy smile that made my pulse race. "Just for tonight," she murmured. "Let's make it unforgettable." Her words sent shivers down my spine. The hotel room offered a stunning panoramic view of the city skyline, creating the perfect romantic setting. We shared another bottle of wine, making small talk, but the tension between us grew stronger. Every glance, every accidental touch, brought us closer to the inevitable. I approached Jessica tenderly, my heart racing with anticipation. As she welcomed my advance, I gently guided her to the bed, our lips meeting in a warm, lingering kiss. With careful, loving movements, I helped her undress, revealing her beautiful form beneath. The sight of her filled me with a complex mix of desire and wonder. My fingertips traced delicate patterns across her skin, starting at her neck and slowly exploring downward, savoring every moment of discovery. She responded with quiet sounds of pleasure, her vulnerability making the moment even more precious. Her skin flushed a beautiful rose color under my touch, her body responding to every caress with increasing passion. Our bodies came together naturally, and Jessica's breathing became more intense, matching my own growing desire. Her nails gently raked across my back, sending shivers of pleasure through me. I maintained a steady, gentle rhythm, gradually building the intensity between us. Jessica moved in perfect synchronization with me, her body finding its natural rhythm with mine. As she wrapped her legs around my waist, pulling me closer, I felt a connection deeper than mere physical attraction. Jessica's cheeks flushed a deep crimson as she let out soft sounds of pleasure. I leaned in close, my lips brushing against her ear as I whispered, "You're absolutely beautiful." Her body trembled beneath my touch, muscles tensing as waves of pleasure coursed through her. I could feel my own release building, our bodies moving in perfect synchronization. When we finally reached our peak together, the intensity was overwhelming. Jessica's back arched gracefully before she collapsed back into the sheets. In the afterglow, we exchanged tender smiles, our bodies intertwined and glistening with perspiration. The delicate scent of her hair filled my senses as we lay there, processing what had just transpired between us. A mix of emotions swirled in our minds: desire, guilt, happiness, uncertainty. But for now, we chose to simply exist in this moment of pure intimacy. Jessica's fingertips traced lazy patterns across my chest, each touch sending tiny sparks through my skin. The next morning, I awakened to warm sunlight filtering through the window. Jessica was already awake, her gentle eyes studying my face with an intensity that made my heart skip. We lay there in comfortable silence, exchanging glances that spoke volumes. Her face showed a mix of contentment and vulnerability, with perhaps a hint of guilt. Unable to resist, I reached for her hand and brought it to my lips, placing a tender kiss on her soft skin. "Make love to me one more time," Jessica whispered, her voice barely audible. My desire grew stronger with each passing moment. My touches, though starting soft, grew more passionate with each passing moment. I helped her from the bed and guided her toward the window, where the morning light bathed our bare bodies in a peaceful glow around us. When Jessica's delicate skin made contact with the cool glass window, a soft, delicate moan escaped her lips. I gently gripped her waist and slowly joined our bodies together from behind. A fleeting thought crossed my mind. This mirrored the position I'd witnessed between Daniel and Emily, and surprisingly, the parallel only heightened my desire. Her dark hair fell down her back, and I tenderly gathered it in one hand. As our passion built, I gradually increased our rhythm, planting gentle kisses along her nape. Her intoxicating scent filled my senses, driving me wild with desire. She responded to my touch, her back arching as she leaned against the window. Her breathing grew more ragged, matching my own mounting passion, until we reached our peak together in perfect synchronization. Waves of intense pleasure coursed through our bodies as Jessica trembled in my arms. We clung to each other tightly, our hearts racing as we basked in the afterglow of our shared ecstasy. In that moment, something shifted within me. The feelings of resentment and jealousy I had harbored over Emily and Daniel's affair began to fade, like morning frost under the warm sun. In its place bloomed something fresh and promising, a sense of renewed purpose and passionate desire. When I gazed into Jessica's eyes, I could see she was experiencing the same profound shift in emotions. Her expression mirrored my own feelings of liberation and possibility. Deep in my soul, I knew with absolute certainty that this intimate moment we shared would mark a significant turning point in all of our lives, forever changing the dynamics of our relationships in ways we had yet to fully understand. Upon returning home, I found Emily had already arrived. The silence between us felt thick with everything we couldn't say. An uncomfortable silence stretched out as we stood there, neither knowing quite how to begin. As I looked at her, memories of our 23-year journey together flooded my mind. A storm of emotions: guilt, love, regret, hope. all competed for dominance as I truly grasped the depth of her loneliness. The emptiness she must have felt all these years without children, a void I had stubbornly refused to acknowledge. I realized that Emily, just like me, had been carrying her own burden of unfulfilled dreams and silent loneliness. Looking into her eyes, I softly asked if I could kiss her. She hesitated briefly, her eyes glistening with tears, before she slowly moved into my arms. We held each other wordlessly, our embrace saying everything that words couldn't. In that moment, we both understood that true love wasn't about perfection. It was about understanding and forgiving each other's flaws and mistakes. Almost naturally, we made love right there on the carpet. It wasn't just physical intimacy. It was a reconnection of souls, a depth of feeling we hadn't experienced in years. Every touch, every kiss felt like rediscovering each other all over again. The weeks that followed became our healing journey. Emily and I dedicated time to really talk things through, gradually confronting each issue in our marriage one by one. We confronted the difficult topics head on, the small things like missed dinner dates and forgotten anniversaries, and the bigger issues that had grown from them. Our different views on having children, the way we'd gradually stopped paying attention to each other's needs, and how our communication had broken down over time. These conversations weren't easy. They often left us emotionally drained and sometimes in tears. But with each painful discussion, we felt ourselves growing stronger, both as individuals and as a couple. It was like cleaning out an old wound. It hurt, but it was necessary for true healing to begin. Our relationship with Daniel and Jessica evolved into something far more intricate than any of us had initially imagined. Week by week, we discovered new ways to navigate our complex emotions. Each dinner, each conversation brought its own challenges and revelations. While we carefully avoided explicitly discussing the nature of our arrangement, each of us was privately navigating this uncharted territory, learning to accept and adapt to our unique situation. Jessica and I continued our occasional rendezvous, just as Emily and Daniel maintained their connection. But it transcended mere physical attraction. We were creating something deeper, a complex web of emotional support where each person somehow filled the voids in the other's lives. Finding this delicate equilibrium was anything but simple. We all grappled with waves of guilt and confusion initially, questioning whether what we were doing was right. Yet gradually, we each found our own path to acceptance, discovering a strange peace in our unconventional arrangement. Though Daniel and Jessica no longer came to our home, we'd meet regularly at quiet cafes or intimate restaurants, maintaining the appearance of ordinary friendships. When our eyes met across the restaurant table, a slight nod or smile conveyed volumes of shared experiences and mutual respect. Most surprisingly, this situation sparked deeper, more honest conversations between Emily and me. We found ourselves discussing things we'd avoided for years, gradually rebuilding the emotional intimacy we'd lost. As weeks turned into months, we realized that this complex dynamic wasn't destroying our relationships. It was enriching them in ways none of us could have predicted, adding layers of understanding and acceptance that made all our connections stronger.